Welcome to the Future Farmers Voice podcast brought to you by Bloomfield Middle School Agricultural Leadership and Communication class. It's Hayden and
Zachary.
And today we would like to introduce you to Ted Shields.
Mr. Shields is a local farmer in the Bloomfield area who raises corn, soybeans, tobacco, and cattle. Welcome to the show, Mr. Shields.
Thank you, Zach.
What made you decide to start farming? And how long have you been farming?
It's probably the best answer to that. It's in my blood. I'm the fourth generation to live and work on the farm where I operate now. I started at a very young age helping my dad, do small tasks like feeding animals. And one of my earliest chores as a kid was going to the hen house to get eggs from the hen house and bringing back to the house every day so we could have fresh eggs. So I started at a really young age, and it just got in my blood, and I've loved doing it ever since.
What would you say is your main favorite thing about doing it?
Probably the independence. When you own and operate your own farm, you're your own boss. There's a lot of responsibility that comes with that, but at the same time, it is very gratifying. You are your own boss. You control your own schedule, and at the end of the day, you can sit on the porch or out in the yard and look out and see what you've accomplished in the day or the week or the month, and it's just gratifying to see your accomplishments when you look at it in that perspective.
How long have you been farming for?
Again, I did a lot of small tasks when I was, 5 or 6, 7 years old. I really probably got more involved, I'd say, around age 12 as far as day-to-day things are on the farm, and I'm almost 52 now, so you could probably say close to 40 years.
Yeah. What are some of your daily tasks relating to farming?
It depends on the season. During the spring, of course, you have to get your crops in the ground. We're coming up here on fall now, which is harvest season. We've completed our tobacco harvest at this point in the season, so that's in the barn. We're not completely done with that yet because we'll have to strip it and prepare it for market. We're preparing to start harvesting soybeans and corn. But as far as day-to-day routines, I have to make sure almost, the livestock, your cattle are in good condition. Make sure if it's during the calving season, which is traditionally spring and fall, we try to monitor our cows and our heifers pretty close to make sure that there's no issues with them delivering their calves and make sure that all the livestock are healthy.
So what crops do you grow?
We grow corn and soybeans, a little bit of wheat, tobacco, and hay, and then we have cattle. I have cattle.
A minute ago, you were talking about responsibilities that are in farming. Can you list some of those responsibilities?
Well, again, we have to ensure our livestock are healthy and in good condition. This year has been a little tough because of the drought situation. I've had issues with making sure they've got plenty of clean, fresh water, for them to drink. You have to monitor your crop conditions through the growing season for weeds, pests, things like that, and apply either your herbicides or your insecticides in timely fashion to try to keep that under control. A lot of the factors are outside of our control, just like the rain. We're in a pretty dry situation right now. There are some situations where you can irrigate. Traditionally, that's an option in your tobacco crops, your smaller acreage, but there are really a lot of farmers in this part of the country or this area of the state that can irrigate on a large scale, hundreds of acres, like they do in some other states. So a lot of that's out of our control, but those are the main things that we have to. And then there's always the maintenance issue. It seems like there's always something breaking down or needing fixing. So maintenance is also a big part of our routine too, keeping our equipment running.
What kind of farming equipment do you use?
We've got a fleet of about 6 to 8 different tractors of different sizes, depending on the task that you need to do. Some are better suited for planting, and some are better suited for hay operations. And then some are what we call utility tractors. They have to do a little bit of everything. You may need them to feed hay to your livestock or do odd jobs or whatever like that. Then, of course, we have a combine to harvest the corn and the soybeans and wheat and the row crops and things like that. And I have an assortment of sprayers depending on the crop. Again, you have to apply herbicide and sometimes insecticides in a timely manner to protect the crop that's growing. So we've got a couple different sprayers that we use to apply those chemicals.
What would you say is the most difficult part of all the farming experiences you had?
At this point in time, again, weather is always the variable that we don't have a lot of control over. So year in and year out, I would probably say that is probably one of the most frustrating for me. The economics are always a concern. Farming historically, prices go up and down, and I tell folks that it's similar to a roller coaster. And if a farmer can remain in pretty good financial shape, we just have to ride those roller coasters out. For now, what we call row crops are corn, soybeans, wheat, things like that, are kind of at a low spot on that roller coaster track, if you would. The prices are not really good for them, but on the other hand, cattle prices right now are pretty strong. So hopefully, if a farmer is well diversed, if he's not focused too heavily on one area, such as row crops or whatever, if he's diverse enough to have cattle to help supplement that income, then when one commodity is low, hopefully the other ones will be a little bit higher and tend to make up for those fluctuations.
Whenever back then, whenever I knew you, you were a fireman, and I believe you still are, right?
Yes, sir.
How are you a fireman and a farmer at the same time? How do you make that work?
The balance, I think, is what you're asking. Yeah, it's like everything else in life, Zach. You have to kind of balance things. There are times through the year when I'm extremely busy, if it's planting season or harvest season, and a lot of times I'm a one man operation, or I hire somebody out to help me get the crops in for a couple of weeks. There are times when I'm not able to answer a call, a fire department call. So hopefully on the fire side of it, we have what we call mutual aid agreements with other departments. So if it's a large incident, we're able to call in other agencies to help with that. Or sometimes it may be just a fact, if a call comes in, I may be doing a task that I can put aside for a while, but it may be a few minutes before I can wrap things up and get in my truck to answer the call for help on the fire side. But we have those resources in place. And again, it's just a matter of balancing what you have to do at the moment. If it's something very important and I can't leave, then we've got other agencies. And I have other firefighters that are available a lot of times that can respond as well.
So. What do you think your favorite part about farming is?
Again, probably my favorite part is being able to see what you've accomplished. I like to sit on the porch at the end of the night if I've just cut a field of hay or just baled it. I like to see my work, that I've been able to accomplish that day. I like the independence of it, the fact that I'm my own boss and, I get to set my own pace and do my own work schedule. And I enjoy having a place where I can raise my kids, where they're in that environment. I firmly believe that children that grow up with that type of background, I think it's a benefit to them in the long run. So I enjoy having my children in that rural setting.
What so far has been your most achieved crop, or what has been the best thing that you've made in agriculture?
It's funny you asked that, Zach, because last year was probably, I've been involved in tobacco in some form or fashion probably since I was about 12 or 13 when I started helping other people. When my father retired in 1991, he and I started raising our own crop again. Up until that point, we'd leased the crop out to another farmer, and I helped that farmer, put it in the barn. So if you look back since 91, what is that, 4 years, I think, I've raised my own individual tobacco crop for the last 34 years. And last year was probably the best crop that we've ever had. It averaged close to 3,000 pounds an acre, which is excellent for a tobacco crop. So I would probably rank that up there probably as one of my most proud accomplishments. So
where do you sell your harvest?
It depends. It depends on market fluctuations. Right now, I still have corn in the bin from 2024 that I've been selling to a local buyer. He takes it and cleans it and then bags it, and actually has been selling it to companies that will sell it to hunters for deer. He sold a lot of corn like that, 50 pounds at a time for deer feed. Probably the most common option is the market in Jeffersonville, Indiana. Consolidated Grain, they're a very large operation. There's also a operation in Loretto that we have the option to sell to from time to time. So it depends on the row crop side. A lot of times who's offering the best market price or what kind of price we can get. For the tobacco, I'm under contract with a company called Altria, and for delivery to Altria, I have to take the finished product to Danville, Kentucky, which is about 40 minutes from here, southeast of here. So I delivered the tobacco crop to Danville, to their receiving station. Cattle, there's a couple options on there. There's a stockyards in Springfield I sell with quite often, Washington County Livestock Center. And there's also Bluegrass Stockyards. They have multiple yards in the state, one in Lexington, one in Campbellsville, and one in Stanford. So, again, depending on the market price, maybe who's offering the highest prices on the livestock is usually the way I go. And you also have to figure in your fuel cost. If you get a little bit more money taking them to Lexington, but it's costing you twice as much fuel, then you have to figure that into the total return as well. So to decide where the best place to sell is.
You said the crop you're most proud of. You, as a farmer, you've probably had many crops that have failed. What would you say is the most disappointing?
Zach, again, that's funny you asked that because I would probably say this year's tobacco crop is probably the worst I've had in 34 years. It's odd that you would have such a great crop last year and a terrible crop this year. If you all remember, we had copious amounts of rain back in April, and not just April. It started, I think, in February, but up through April and May, we had so much rain that the ground conditions were not ideal. Once the crop was in the ground, it got a lot of additional rain after that. And tobacco, historically, when you look at it, it tends to be more like a weed. It does not like a lot of water. It needs some water for its growth, but it does not like an abundance of water. And I think all that rain that we had this year translated into the poor crop that we had, both in plant size, weed control. We had a lot of issues with weeds in some of the patches. So I would probably say the best crop of anything was last year's tobacco, and one of the worst was probably this year's tobacco. I do recall drought years. I believe 2012 was pretty tough. We had pretty low corn yields that year. This year's drought hasn't affected row crops near as bad as it did the tobacco. I know it's kind of ironic because we had so much rain early, but now we're very dry. But that's one good thing about all that rainfall, even though it was bad on the tobacco crop earlier in the year. It did help on the yields for the soybeans and the corn later on. So.
What kind of cows do you raise?
I do not have any registered cattle. I try to purchase registered Angus bulls, but as far as the mother cows, I don't have any purebred, but the predominant trait in my herd is Angus.
If you could give our viewers one piece of farming advice, what would it be?
For young people, and it frustrates me, Zach, because land prices are very high. Equipment prices, there's very little in farming that's cheap. It takes a lot of capital, to be a farmer, and it's disappointing to me that a young person would have trouble if they decided they wanted to be a farmer starting out. I won't say it's impossible, but it's very hard unless you've grown up as a farmer or in a farming family. It's very hard for somebody who has no farming background to just go out and decide to be a farmer because it takes so much capital, not only for the land but the equipment. If my best advice to any young person that wants to get in the ag business would be to associate yourself with somebody that's already in that business, and it doesn't necessarily have to be a farmer. Yes, you could maybe co-op when you're in high school or go to work on a farm or help a grain farmer or a livestock farmer or whatever. But there are other avenues as well. You could work at a retailer who supplies to the ag industry, such as Southern States or Bluegrass Seed, or any number of retailers out there that work with the farmers. That's an excellent way to get involved in agricultural if you have not come up, in a farm family or been raised on a farm. But I would love to see a little more opportunity for young people who don't have a farming background to be able to do that if they choose.
How many acres is your farm, and how much do you actually farm of it?
We're farming about 900 acres right now. About 800 of that is owned, so about 900 total.
Starting off as a farmer, what do you think would be the best thing for people to grow or raise?
Gosh, that's a tough question. I guess it depends on the circumstances. My best advice for that would be to know your area and know your potential. And what I mean by that is, take a look at your community. Is there a need there that maybe is not being met? For instance, I've got a friend who raises produce and vegetables and has a program where you can pay so much money a month and then go to his house and pick up these fresh fruits and vegetables. I think that's an excellent idea that he came up with many years ago. He saw a need for or a market there that he could kind of cater to, and he took advantage of that. A lot of think outside the box. Horticulture, aquaculture, which I don't know of any in our immediate area, but I know there are several aquaculture ventures across the state. People raising like shrimp or prawns or things like that. A lot of people are into hunting and honeybees. So my best advice would be kind of look at your area or look at your community and maybe see or think to yourself, hey, is there a need out here in this community that nobody's meeting, or is there something maybe that I can focus on to fill a void that would be beneficial and provide me income?
Are you usually by yourself farming?
Depends on what we're doing at the time. Tobacco, which is probably one of our main income sources, is very labor intensive. There's no way I could do that by myself. 99% of the tobacco work is done by hand. So many years ago, I decided to start using what's known as the H2A program, and that is a program that actually allows migrant workers from other countries to come to our country to work. So I've been very fortunate for the last 4 or 5 years. I've had the same 3 workers from Mexico. They're very good workers, and they've been helping me for so long now. I don't even have to give them very specific directions. I can tell them, hey, go do A, B, and C, and they've done it enough that I can turn them loose and they'll get the job done. So tobacco, yes, I definitely have to have a lot of help for that. Smaller tasks, feeding your livestock, making sure that gets taken care of. I can generally manage most of that. Repairs, depending on the in-depthness, or how complicated the repair is, I'd say I can probably handle 75 to 80% of that myself. Grain harvest, such as corn and soybeans, I generally have one person that helps me do that, who will run what we call the grain cart. That is the large cart that we unload off of the combine into, and then the cart operator will either take it to a semi truck and trailer if I'm taking it on the market, or we'll take it on to the bin if we're storing it in the bin. So generally, I have one person help me for the row crops.
What do you think your most profited crop is usually?
Most years tobacco. Now this year that's yet to be seen, since our tobacco crop was pretty tough. Didn't do too well, but and that may be the case again this year as well. Even though it wasn't the best crop, there's still a pretty good profit margin in tobacco if you're able to control your expenses and watch your costs. So, but the majority of the time it is still tobacco.
Do you think tobacco is one of your most maintenance crops?
Without a doubt, yes. It is. It requires the most labor. It requires the most attention. Yes, without a doubt.
With that, and big thank you to Mr. Shields for sharing their story and giving us a behind the scenes look at life on the farm. And thank you for the viewers for listening.